Today's show is going to be all about finance and stuff. And you and I were just having a conversation about what's the ROI of college tuition. We both have kids. Well, I have one left in college. I think you have one as well.
Yep.
And it's real very relative. And I think we both agree we're very fortunate to, help get our kids through school and not where they don't have to have any debt. For the most part,
maybe,
and maybe
I'm still trying to decide this. This is why the conversation came up. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the ROI is it has to be measured on multi levels, and that's what I wanted to share on the show. It's like some businesses have multiple bottom lines, and I think the ROI of college has multiple bottom lines, and I mentioned to you, my son, I think, has gotten more out of just being on his own for the last 2 years and making decisions and all those kinds of, I'm not there to solve his problems anymore. And he's definitely a different person. Night and day, he's taken on a really tough summer job, great potential, but all commission. And he never would have done that before, I don't think. And so I think that multiple bottom line really has to be considered.
I guess.
Right?
I think
it does.
Yes and no. Yes, in that I fully agree that I think of college in part as a halfway house, right? And this is the part I ascribe to what you're talking about, where your kid has the opportunity. Our kids have their opportunities to be on their own, but still in a bubble, right? College isn't entirely on your own. You do have people there, especially if you're living in a dorm, to help guide you from doing the worst, from making the worst decisions, right? And hopefully you start to learn to make better and better decisions and doing all those things. So, but your parents aren't there. And so that's why I call it this halfway house. And there is huge value in that. I totally agree. Yeah. There's a bottom line there, but there is arguably very little difference in the value of the bottom line, the halfway house version of the bottom line at a school that costs $20,000 a year versus a school that costs $80,000 a year, right? And
totally agree.
Arguably, there's very little difference in the actual education at a school that's $20,000 a year versus 80. There might be a measurable difference, but I don't think it's 4x. Right.
No, I don't think so.
But then there's the third bottom line. And I want to talk more about the second one that I'm glossing over, the actual financial bottom line. But the third bottom line of what other benefits does a particular school bring you, right? Connections, into the workplace.
Connections.
Or just connections like that you might get fraternal type of connections, whether or not your school has fraternities, or if it does, whether or not you take advantage of them. But that idea that, we went through a thing together, we went through college together, and it worked out. So, and we there was shared crisis and all that stuff. But,
of course. I think it's, and I would love to get some other, input on this of small business owners that,
but I don't want to end this topic though, because okay, go ahead.
Yeah, well, what I'm just saying, just send us your comments and feedback at businessshow.co, because I would just love to hear that, what you decided and how you're managing it. I've had these same discussions with both my kids about, well, what are you getting out of it? And my daughter went to a significantly more expensive school than my son, but again, I think you have to cater it to the kid. But it is really important. I think one of the great things you're doing, Dave, is sitting down with your son in this case and really having that explanation. And that question means asking the question to your son: if you had to borrow this money, would you do it?
Well, and that's the key, right? That when I talk about that second bottom line, the financial bottom line, it's how do you capitalize this cost? Like with any of my business ventures, and even with my house, as through my life, we talk about using our business brains all the time, right? That's what we do here, is we apply this business brain thinking, sometimes to our businesses, sometimes to our personal lives, right? And
absolutely,
I look at, we're putting in, we just put in a patio at the house, and we spent, a not small amount of money on doing this. We put a hot tub in and a fire pit and all this stuff. But it's like, okay, we're going to get some level of enjoyment out of it. That's why we did the patio now. But because we have this 5-year plan, right? And maybe we sell the house in 10 years. Maybe we sell it in 2 years. I don't know. But, we've given ourselves this 5-year plan. We've been in the house 17 years. There's a bunch of things that we need to do to make the house attractive to sell.
Sure.
Although if we were to sell it today, it probably doesn't need to be attractive at all, although that's changing. But, so we made this list. And then we prioritized the list by the things that we will enjoy while we're still here. Versus, we have one bathroom, for example, that we never use. So if we do that bathroom, a week before we put it on the market, that's great. We don't care.
Yeah, that's right.
But the patio, we did that, but we're still looking at like, okay, what's the investment? What's the return we're going to get on this? Both in terms of, actual price for the house, curb appeal, sellability, and then whatever time we will live here with it, enjoyment, right? And so there's all these things, and I can't help but apply my business brain to college education. And there's a huge difference between paying $100,000 for a 4-year degree, a $20,000 or $25,000 a year school, and $360,000 for a 4-year degree for an $80,000 a year school. And I have trouble, or 320,000, I guess is what that math comes out to. I multiplied it. I took the 90, not the 80, but it's a lot of money. And I don't see how everything I look at with my business brain, whether I look at it, whether I'm paying cash or not, I look at how long would it take me to pay this off if I borrowed 100% of the money? Because I am borrowing that money, right? I'm borrowing it. If I'm paying cash, I'm borrowing it from myself and reducing the amount of cash that I have to spend on something else. And that is where it's like, okay, for 100K, looking at where salaries are and, the opportunities that you might get when you graduate. Okay, 100K, great, makes sense. And then adding in, there's the halfway house aspect. There's the connections and all of that. Okay, this school over here has better connections. Okay, is that worth an extra $320,000 or $220,000? No, that's not. I can already tell you it's not. Like, you're never going to pay that loan off, whether you borrowed it from a bank or borrowed it from yourself. Because in theory, the money that you spend, you get back in the end, right? And so, like, I can't do it. I can't figure it out. And that's I'd love someone to help shed light on this for me, because I want to at least have the opportunity to see it differently. feedback@businessshow.co.
Yeah. Your business brain looks at it one way. Your parent brain may be looking at it another.
And my parent brain wants to look at it another, but my business brain isn't letting it. That's really the thing. I don't know, man.
It's a classic dilemma, man. It's very challenging. I've had this conversation with tons of parents last few years because our kids and my kids went to private school their whole life, private high school, K through 8, all that stuff. And I was like, wow, when I sit down and think about all the investment, which I'm very happy we did.
But that's it. It's an investment, and there needs to be a return, an ROI, a return on that investment.
Yeah.